in the rural area near where I live. I think of myself as an artist rather than a photographer. I'm just an artist who happens to use the camera as a medium at the moment. I'm also a printmaker and I do drawing. My work's about the passing of time and seasonal change in relation to the rural landscape. I'm interested in things like the weather and the actions of farmers, things like that, crop markings. If I set up a sequence whereby I've got to go on a particular day, then I go if it's raining or whatever it's doing. Sometimes I take photographs without a specific end in view, but much later I select out and I take hundreds more photographs than I ever use. The Starfield Drought and Rain was a series which I did during the drought year, the very hot year. The first one which I took was in June, and the farmer had just drilled in a field of cauliflowers, and they just completely shriveled and died. And I went back about a month later, expecting to see that the farmer had re-drilled the crop or just abandoned them. But in fact, we'd had a shower a couple of days before that second photograph, and they just revived sufficiently. And I went back a month later, and that was when the weather broke, and we had a terrific thunderstorm. And you see the crop's doing really well. So it's a story with a happy ending. I don't think really anyone with my type of camera could just go out and take my photographs. I like to think that there's something of me in the work, that I put my own feelings about the landscape and my feeling for the earth into the work. My film is sent away to be processed by a laboratory, and they at the same time make proofs of that film, and I select from the proofs. Well, usually my editions are an edition of 10. I'm not particularly happy about editioning, but it's not something that I think about too much, because it would be more or less impossible for me to sell my photographs as fine art photographs unless they were limited in some way, and the whole system is geared to that, and so I don't argue with it.
Dealers argue that it is economically necessary to limit editions and maintain prices because the market for prints is small. But is this so? Critic Sarah Kent.
Dealers generally have a rather small clientele based upon buying paintings and drawings, not upon buying prints. And so they tend to sell their prints either to that same clientele or just to people who happen to wander into the gallery by chance. And galleries are generally rather off-putting places. You have to be quite brave to walk into some West End galleries. They really do look quite frightening, I think. Nevertheless, if you are brave enough simply to march in, then you are welcome and you can look round. But there isn't really the high street shop for selling prints. In the high street shop, you'll be able to buy reproductions of famous paintings, but you won't be able to buy the original print by a living artist who isn't known. The print boom really began in the 60s. That was a time when there was a tremendous interest in this country, as well as in the States, in the visual arts generally. And prints in unlimited editions were published at that time, believing that one could sell to a large number of people. That's no longer the case, and I think this is very sad. It's almost as if that market really wasn't there. The interest faded and died. And so we're back again to the limited edition. We're back to the edition of 100, 150, maybe even only of 50 or sometimes 5. It's always easier to sell a few rather than a lot. It's less effort. You know your public. You know your clients personally. It would require a whole new network of selling to be set up, which is something that perhaps the Arts Council should investigate.
A large commercial network has developed in reproductions, also called prints. Some are even sold in large signed and limited editions, which makes them behave like originals. For example, some reproductions of Lowry's paintings were signed by the artist and since his death have increased in value. Anthony England.
We start from unlimited editions, unsigned limited editions, and also signed limited editions. The unsigned unlimited, which are the most sought after in the general public's view because they're so cheap and reasonable, that would be in the region of about £8. And then I sell the limited editions, which are up to possibly 750 at a maximum, or 850 according to what the publishers wish to do. And then there is the signed limited edition, which is well sought after by people who are looking for a value inflation picture, which they can say in a couple of years' time would be double the value, or maybe more. With any of the signed limited editions that we have in the gallery of any kind, they're paying for the signature. The signature is very important to those prices.
The Tate Gallery exhibits one kind of print and sells another. Those sold in the gallery's shop are reproductions of original works on exhibition and are sold for up to £5. Publications manager Ian Bain.
Well, the gallery shop has a wide range of prints, some of our own, which are about 120 of them, and some from outside publishers, but they're all mechanical reproductions, printed by lithography.
Can I have the mural Magical Supernatural poster, please?
Certainly. We don't limit mechanical reproductions because, in fact, once you've got what you regard to be a satisfactory result, you could print 1 million and they would all be the same.
That's £2.
The commercial reproduction process used by the Tate is the one most commonly used for colour printing anything from books to Turner paintings.
The great disadvantage in reproduction for an art gallery of this kind is that you cannot get the original to the printer. And so he's working at one remove all the time, and we have to then provide him with a colour transparency. And this always has defects, it's bound to, it can never be perfect. When the transparency has been taken, the printer has to come and inspect it against the original before he starts work.
That sky needs some attention, I think, Ian, as usual.
Because it's far too warm, particularly.
Yeah.
With this process, there's clearly no question of originality. The dead artist's work is being copied as closely as possible, although the technical execution could be good or bad. The printer George Chalmers takes us through the process.
The first stage, when the colour transparency is brought back into the works, is to extract from it the 4 separation colours which are the basis of lithographic printing as it's known today. These are cyan blue, yellow, magenta and black. Derek, standard set of separations for this one. We're going to have to increase the magenta fairly considerably along the buildings and the skyline. Right. For the moment, just a standard set.
Okay.
To make the standard set of negative separations, the transparency is exposed through 4 colour filters.
The red filter extracts from the transparency the cyan blue colour. The green filter extracts the magenta. The blue filter extracts the yellow. And a mixture of the 3 filter exposures gives us the black separation negative. We do all of the adjustments to the separation in black and white. The increase in magenta we talked about, the blue also needs increasing in the sky by about 10%. When the colour retoucher is satisfied with the negatives, he then gives them to the camera operator, who will take them into the darkroom and turn the negatives into positives. Each negative in turn is put into the head of the enlarger. He then takes a sheet of magenta gel, which is actually a halftone screen, and this halftone screen converts the image into dots. He then puts the sensitive film under this screen and exposes the film. The film is then developed through an automatic film processor. The dot structure at this stage represents the colour as it will eventually print. This is the magenta. The bigger dots represent the deeper colour and the smallest dots the lightest colour. The retoucher then checks the colour value at various points. He again makes any adjustment needed. The positives then pass through for the lithographic printing plate to be produced. The plate is given a 3-minute exposure to ultraviolet light. The protected areas where the dot structure has been on the positive is now shown as a yellow image area. The plate is then developed in the sink, and after development it is inked up.
This black ink protects the sensitive plate until it's time for proofing. The final stage in making the reproduction is when the protected lithographic plate is passed over to the proofing press, where the plate will be printed up in colour for the first time. The plate is carefully locked into registration on the press so that all the plates will print on top of each other correctly, and finally the protective ink is removed.
The first colour to be proofed is the cyan blue. When the proofer is satisfied that he's got about the correct weight of ink, he will then take reflection densitometer readings to ensure, firstly, that he's got the correct weight of colour, and secondly, that the weight is correct across the sheet. The second colour is the yellow, which is then superimposed on top of the blue to give us the 2-colour build-up. Following that, the magenta, and this produces the 3-colour printed result. The fourth colour, being the black key printer, gives us depth of shadow detail and key detail, which otherwise you wouldn't get from the 3 colours. How's that, Alan?
Right, very good, George. Very nice. This is going to be nice. Blue wants to go down and touch in the browns.
Yeah.
The sky's looking fine. Otherwise, I think that's fine.
The next stage is to take a proof sheet into the Tate Gallery itself and compare it against the original painting.
I think we've got a pretty good start here for a first proof. Let's get the light on. That looks very good. Quite obviously we're going to have to work on this area here, which has got rather green. Yellow's coming up a bit. And along the buildings on the waterfront.
To get a bit more yellow detail coming in through there, I think.
I think that's fair. After the second proof is made, we have to come back yet again, printer and myself, to see if we can agree that it's right to print. All the points we were looking for in that building on the left.
Yeah, that
the vessels in the left-hand corner.
Coming through.
And along the waterfront.
Yeah.
Well, very good. We can get the plates away to the printer.
Good. That's fine.
The final result on this Turner that we've done is really very good. There are certain local discrepancies, but we don't think we're going to get any better, and we have essentially caught the spirit of the picture, and that's our main purpose. The question of scale can sometimes quite radically alter one's idea of an original painting, and we do have a problem, for instance, with the big Matisse, which is a marvelous paper cutout collage. It's virtually impossible to get the surface reproduced on paper. And there's one that we've reproduced of Larionov, which shows this particularly. And nobody should try and think that they're going to put this together in an elaborate gilt frame and make it look as if it were the original. They would be far better to frame it like a print and to put a mount on it and treat it as a reproduction for what it is. We wouldn't dream of limiting this. There would be no point to it. It's possible that it's a license to print money, but we're not in the autograph business.
This Andy Warhol poster was made by the Tate Gallery 10 years ago in exactly the same way as the Turner reproduction and is sold for £2. It is advertised by the dealer who bought some in bulk, cut off the bottom, and asked Andy Warhol to sign it as a lithographic poster at £98. Reproductions are indeed generally printed by commercial lithography, but when they're signed by a famous person and advertised in words conveying scarcity and value, even though the word reproduction is mentioned in the small print, at £50 each they might seem to be something else. A thriving side of the reproduction business lies in commissioning paintings especially for reproduction. The artist does not intervene in the standard commercial four-colour process, which copies the original. Sylvia Duran.
I am signing a limited edition of prints, and it's usually about 850. I will have a contact with the man that goes to the printers. We see a proof, and from there we look at the original and check the tones, etc., and it's done this way. You can get a good royalty. It depends how they sell.
In the context of the Fine Art Trade Guild, a trade association of print publishers, the words fine art print mean reproduction. Sylvia Duran's publisher is a member.
We as the publishers have come to the Fine Art Trade Guild to witness the stamping of a limited edition of prints. We don't number them because they are commercially produced prints and there should be no difference between the first and the last. They are simply reproductions. The stamp means that the edition is strictly limited, that the plates and so on will have been destroyed after the production, so it cannot be repeated. And the artist has seen each proof and it has been personally signed by the artist. These are not original prints. They are commercially produced prints of high quality which have been authenticated by the artist. They are no more than that.
I think it's very confusing. The word print is used very loosely. Unless you're used to looking at prints, unless you've actually made prints yourself, it's difficult to tell if something's a lithograph, a silk screen, a photographic silk screen, if it's the artist who's manipulated the photographic process, or if the artist made a drawing and someone else photographed the drawing. It's difficult to tell, and I think it's important to ask, so that at least you know what you're getting. You know if it's an original or if it's a reproduction of something. You must try and unravel your motives for buying something. You might simply want something that looks attractive on your wall. You might want to feel that you have contact with a creative individual. You might want to invest something. You might want something that will accrue in value. Or you might want to buy something that's a little piece of history, a little piece of somebody world famous. And I don't think there's a right motive for buying a print. I don't think one should be moral about what is a good reason or a bad reason. I think what's important is that you understand your own motives, so that you know why you want it, and therefore you can search for what you want.
Is this the one you meant?
Yes, I think so. There's another colour. Yes, that's the one.
It's a silk screen print.
How much is it?
It's £70.
Marvellous. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you again.